He had everything: wealth, power, influence, but none of it could fill the emptiness inside him. Years ago, Charles Whitmore, a self-made millionaire, lost his only daughter in a tragic accident. Since then, life had been nothing more than numbers, contracts, and hollow victories. People envied him, but he envied them for their families, their laughter, the simple joys he could no longer touch. One morning, as Charles walked into a luxury department store he owned, he stopped in his tracks. His chest tightened, and for the first time in years, his breath caught like a man struck by lightning. There she was, a young woman in a crisp store uniform, arranging clothes on a rack. She looked up for just a moment, and Charles's heart nearly stopped. The resemblance was undeniable: her eyes, the curve of her face. Even the way she brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. It was his daughter, or at least someone who looked exactly like her. The shock rattled him. He gripped the polished counter for support, his mind spinning. It's impossible. She's gone. Duh! I buried her. And yet, staring at this worker, Charles felt the past come alive before his very eyes. He approached slowly, almost afraid. The worker noticed him and smiled politely, unaware of the storm brewing in his chest. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you find something?" Even her voice carried the same soft cadence. Charles's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to say something, but the words refused to come out. Finally, he managed. "What's your name?" The young woman tilted her head, a little puzzled. "Emily, sir. Emily." The name struck him like a cruel twist of fate. His daughter's name had been Amelia, just one letter apart. Charles excused himself quickly, retreating to his office, shutting the door behind him like he was locking away his breaking heart. He sank into his leather chair, pressing trembling hands against his face. Was this some cosmic trick? A cruel reminder of what he had lost? Or was there something more? That night, Charles couldn't sleep. Emily's face haunted him, blending with the memory of his daughter. The more he thought about it, the more he needed to know. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why did fate place her in his store, in his life at this moment? And deep inside, a seed of hope took root, a dangerous, fragile hope he hadn't felt in years. Because what if, just what if, Amelia wasn't truly gone? The next morning, Charles returned to the store, but not as the powerful owner who usually strode through the halls with clipped authority. He was a man carrying questions, too heavy to ignore. His eyes scanned the floor until they found her Emily. She was folding shirts, humming softly to herself. The tune was faint, but Charles froze when he recognized it. It was a lullaby, the very same one he used to sing to Amelia when she was a child. His chest tightened, and his heart pounded like a drum. "Excuse me, Emily," he said gently, his voice softer than usual. She looked up, surprised to see the millionaire speaking to her directly. "Yes, sir." Charles hesitated, searching her face for answers. "That song you were humming? Where did you learn it?" Emily blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, it's just something my mother used to sing to me when I was little. I don't even remember when I first heard it." His hands trembled slightly. But that lullaby wasn't common. It was one he had written himself years ago, just for Amelia. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Charles cleared his throat. "Emily, would you mind joining me in my office for a moment? I'd like to talk to you." Her eyes widened with hesitation. Employees rarely ever entered his office, let alone by personal invitation. But she nodded, following him up the staircase. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt heavier, charged with an emotion Emily couldn't quite place. She sat nervously while Charles paced slowly, like a man preparing himself for a truth he wasn't ready to face. "Emily," he began, lowering himself into the chair across from her. "Tell me about yourself. Where are you from? Who are your parents?" Emily tilted her head, unsure why the questions carried so much weight. "I grew up here in the city. My mother raised me alone. She passed away a few years ago. I never knew my father." Charles's breath caught. His chest felt like it was being crushed under the weight of invisible hands. A missing father. A lullaby only he had written. A face identical to the daughter he lost. The world tilted beneath him. Could it be? Could Amelia somehow have survived, hidden away all these years? Or was Emily something even more shocking? Charles leaned forward, his eyes glistening. "Emily, Do you have any old photographs of your mother? Emily frowned slightly, puzzled but curious. Yes, I think I have one in my locker. Why? Bring it to me, Charles whispered. His voice cracked with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. Emily left the room, leaving Charles alone in the silence of his office. His mind raced. He thought of the accident, the wreckage, the night that shattered his world. Could it have been a mistake? Could someone have hidden the truth from him? Moments later, Emily returned with a small, faded photograph. She placed it gently on his desk. Charles reached for it with trembling hands, his eyes scanning the face of the woman in the picture. And then everything inside him went still. The woman in the photograph wasn't just familiar. She was someone he once knew. Someone tied directly to the darkest chapter of his past. And in that moment, Charles realized this wasn't a coincidence. This was the beginning of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. Charles stared at the photograph, his hands gripping it so tightly the edges crumpled. His heart thundered in his chest, not just from recognition, but from memory. The woman smiling faintly in the picture was not a stranger. It was Clara. Clara had once been a housemaid in his mansion, kind, quiet, always moving through the halls like a shadow. She had been there during the happiest and the darkest days. She was there when Amelia was a little girl. She had suddenly vanished from his life, just weeks after the terrible accident that claimed his daughter. Charles's throat went dry. He looked up at Emily, who was standing anxiously in front of him. What was your mother's name? Clara, Emily said softly. Clara Bennett. The name hit Charles like a punch to the chest. His hands shook as he set the photo down. Memories came rushing back, Clara crying quietly in the kitchen, Clara rocking Amelia in her arms when Charles was too busy with work, Clara whispering lullabies when the house grew to silent. Emily, his voice cracked. Did your mother ever tell you where you came from? About your early years? Emily shifted uncomfortably. She told me I was born here, that she raised me alone. I asked about my father once, but she said it was complicated. She always avoided the topic. Charles leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. If Clara had taken Emily... No. If Clara had saved her, then everything he thought he knew was a lie. His daughter hadn't died that night. She had been taken, hidden, raised in secrecy. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Emily, listen to me very carefully. The lullaby you hummed, the one your mother sang too, you know one else knows that melody? I wrote it for my daughter. His voice broke. Emily, I believe you might be her. Emily's face went pale. Her hands trembled as she shook her head. That's not possible. My mother, she never said anything like that. She wouldn't have, Charles said, his tone a mix of sorrow and anger. If she wanted to protect you from me, or from the pain of the truth. Tears welled in Emily's eyes.
Oh, you're saying you're my father?
The words hung heavy in the room, more suffocating than silence. Charles stepped closer, desperate but terrified. Yes, I need to know. I need proof. There are ways to be certain. A DNA test, records, something. But in my heart, Emily, I feel it. Amelia in your face. I hear her in your voice. Emily staggered back, her world unraveling. She had walked into the store thinking she was just another worker, invisible in the grand machine of life. But now she was standing in the middle of a revelation that could change everything she thought she knew about herself. And yet behind Charles's trembling voice and raw emotion, a shadow lingered. Because if this was true, she really was his daughter, then why had Clara hidden her all these years? What was she protecting Emily from? The answer was buried in a past Charles had tried to lock away. And as much as he longed to embrace his daughter, he couldn't shake the chilling thought that Clara hadn't just been protecting Emily from grief. She had been protecting her from him. Emily's heart raced, the sound of it thundering in her ears louder than Charles's trembling words. Wanted to believe him. It's a part of Hertha, a part that always felt a strange emptiness. A question without an answer, wanted to cling to the idea that she belonged to someone, that she wasn't just a shadow in the world. But another part of her recoiled. Why now? She whispered, her voice sharp with fear. Why only now, after all these years, do you suddenly see me and decide I'm your daughter? Charles's eyes glistened, his voice raw. Because I buried my grief so deep, Emily, I stopped believing in miracles. I stopped believing there was any chance she survived. But seeing you, it's like the world is giving me back what it stole. Emily shook her head, tears burning her eyes. My mother never told me anything like this. She never once hinted that I wasn't hers. She loved me, raised me, sacrificed everything for me. And you, where were you all these years? Why didn't you come looking? Charles flinched as if she had struck him. His lips trembled. I did. I searched everywhere. When Clara disappeared, I thought she was just running from pain. I never imagined she took Amelia with her. I trusted her like family. I thought she'd grieved with me, not taken my flesh and blood. Emily hugged herself tightly, her body trembling. Do you know how insane this sounds? That my mother kidnapped me from some mansion and raised me as her own? Why would she do that? Silence stretched between them. Charles's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. Because she knew something about me, about the world I lived in, the enemies I made, the dangers surrounding my name. Maybe she thought she was protecting you from all of it. Emily stared at him, her voice shaking. Or maybe she was protecting me from you. The words cut deep, and Charles stumbled back a step, his face drained of color. For the first time in years, the great millionaire looked small, fragile, broken. Emily, he said hoarsely, I know I was not the perfect father. I drowned myself in work. I trusted people I shouldn't have. But I loved Amelia. I loved her more than anything. Losing her destroyed me. Emily wiped her tears roughly, her voice a mixture of defiance and sorrow. And yet you're asking me to believe that everything I knew, all the bedtime stories, the comfort, the love my mother gave me, was built on a lie. That's not easy to swallow. Charles took a step closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Then don't believe my words. Believe the truth. Let's find it together. Let's test the blood, the DNA. And if I'm wrong, then I'll disappear from your life forever. But if I'm right, Emily, you'll finally know who you are. Her hands trembled as she wiped her eyes. A storm raged inside her. She had always carried unanswered questions, but she never thought they would crash into her like this, shattering her identity, rewriting her story. She nodded slowly, almost against her own will. Fine, one test. One answer. But if you're wrong, I never want to see you again. Charles's chest heaved with relief. That's all I ask. But as Emily turned away, clutching her trembling hands, a strange chill crept into her chest. Because for the first time, she realized if Charles was right, her whole life had been stolen. And the only person who could explain why was no longer here to answer. The waiting room was suffocatingly quiet, the kind of silence that made every tick of the clock unbearable. Emily sat with her hands clenched in her lap, her nails digging into her palms. Charles sat across from her, staring at the floor, his usually commanding presence reduced to a nervous wreck. Neither spoke. Every word had already been said, every accusation already thrown. Now, only the truth remained. When the lab technician finally entered with a sealed envelope, Emily's stomach twisted. Her throat went dry. The technician's neutral expression gave nothing away as he placed the envelope on the table and quietly left. Charles reached for it, but Emily's voice cut through the silence. No, I'll read it. Her fingers trembled as she tore the flap open. The paper inside felt heavier than stone. She scanned the words once, twice, 3 times, able to process them at first. Then, her breath hitched, her knees nearly buckling. She was his daughter, 99.9% match. Emily dropped the paper on the table as if it had burned her. Her eyes darted to Charles, who was already crying, his face collapsing with relief. I knew it, he whispered. I knew it was you, Amelia. Emily shot up from her chair, her voice breaking. Don't call me that. My name is Emily. I'm not this Amelia you keep clinging to. I don't know her. I don't know you. Charles stood too, desperation spilling from every word. You are her, you're my daughter. They told me she was gone, but you were alive all along. Emily, don't you see? This is fate. We've been given a second chance. Tears streaked Emily's face, anger boiling in her chest. A second chance for you, maybe. But for me, my whole life just became a lie. My mother raised me. She loved me. And now you're telling me she was a thief, a liar, that everything she ever told me was false? Do you have any idea what that feels like? Charles reached for her hands, but she pulled back. Emily, I can't change what happened. I can't change what she did. But I can give you what was stolen, your family, your name, your inheritance. I can give you the life you were meant to have. Her voice cracked with fury. I don't want your money. I don't want your mansion or your name. I want my mother back. You can't give me that, can you? Charles's face fell, his chest heaving. For the first time, he had no answer. He stood there, broken, as Emily stormed past him, clutching her chest, as though her very heart was breaking apart. Outside, the cold air hit her like a slap, but it couldn't numb the fire inside her. She felt betrayed, lost, torn between the woman who raised her and the man who claimed her. She wanted to scream, to run, to undo the truth she had just read. But she couldn't escape it. She was his daughter. And no matter how much she hated him in this moment, the blood in her veins whispered a story she could no longer deny. Days passed, but Emily couldn't escape the whirlwind inside her. Every reflection in a window, every mirror she passed, reminded her of the truth she had read on that paper, the undeniable proof of who she was. Charles, meanwhile, gave her space. He didn't try to force their connection, though every fiber of his being wanted to hold her, to apologize for the years lost. To make up for the pain she had endured, he watched from a distance as she wrestled with her emotions, knowing that trust once broken could not be rushed. One evening, Emily found herself walking through the very park where she had spent countless hours with Clara. Memories flooded her mind. Bedtime stories, whispered reassurances, the feeling of absolute safety in her mother's arms. But now, mixed with them, was a new reality, a man claiming to be her father. A life she never knew, a past that didn't match the one she had grown up believing. She sat on a bench, hugging her knees, when Charles approached cautiously. He didn't sit immediately. Instead, he waited, giving her the choice. Finally, Emily spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why should I believe you? Why now? How do I know this isn't some fantasy or a scam? Charles knelt in front of her, keeping his hands visible, his eyes locked on hers. Because the truth is in the evidence. Because I would never lie to you. And because I've spent every day since you disappeared longing for this moment, praying it would come. I can't undo the past, Emily, but I can promise to be here for the future. To be your father, however long it takes to earn your trust. Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, the anger she felt began to mingle with something else. Hope, hesitant, fragile, but undeniable. I don't know if I can just forgive you or accept this, she admitted. You don't have to forgive me today, Charles said softly. You don't have to accept me today. Just let me show up tomorrow. Let me show up the day after that. One day at a time. That's all I ask. Emily looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in a man she had only known as a stranger. A stranger who now claimed her as his daughter. A stranger whose grief mirrored her own. And she realized that perhaps she didn't have to face this alone. A small, tentative smile broke through her tears. One day at a time, she echoed. Charles reached out slowly, and she allowed her hand to touch his. The connection was fragile, a whisper of the bond that had always been there, but had been hidden, lost to circumstances neither of them controlled. As they walked back toward the city lights, side by side, Emily realized something powerful. The past had shaped her, yes, but it didn't have to define her. She could embrace the love she had been denied for so long, even if cautiously, even if uncertain. And for Charles, the moment was more than reconciliation, it was redemption. A chance to rebuild a life that had been shattered, to reclaim the daughter he had thought he lost forever. The world outside the store continued in its usual rhythm, different to their reunion but inside their hearts. A new chapter had begun, a chapter of healing, understanding, and the fragile. Beautiful beginning of a father and daughter finding each other once more. If this emotional reunion moved you, hit like. Subscribe for more incredible stories, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Remember, it's never too late to reconnect with the ones you love.